We decided to analyze the novel Fahrenheit 451 for historical context because the various elements of the book, such as the book burning and the use of media, are incredibly reflective of the world as it is when it was published.
Fahrenheit 451 is a novel set in the 24th century. Guy Montag is the protagonist of the story. He is a fireman who enjoys the burning of illegally owned books in the homes of the book owners. Montag begins to question the value of his profession, and his inner conflict eventually causes him to run away from his censored society. Montag's friendship with Clarice in the beginning of the novel causes him to re-examine his life with his current wife, Mildred, and his life as a whole. Mildred has dedicated her life to immersing herself in television and ignoring reality. Montag develops feelings of discontent as he sees that members of society are completely ignorant to accepting the atomic war which is soon to come. Montag steals books from a book collection in an elderly woman's home whom he is supposed to burn. The woman's dedication to her books and her death with her books gives him the idea that books can fill the happiness he is missing in his life. Montag returns home, now viewing his life's work as pure and utter destruction. Mildred informs Montag of Clarice's death earlier in the week by a speeding oncoming car. He sleeps with his book the following night under his pillowcase. The following morning, he calls his boss Beatty and tells him that he is sick and he will not be coming to work today. Beatty visits Montag and gives him a lecture about how great the structured current society is compared to before. Mildred attempts to clean and organize the home and find Montag's hidden book. Mildred talks to Beatty in a theoretical sense about what would happen if a fireman took home a book, learning that Montag has 24 hours with the book in his possession. Montag contacts Faber, who is seemingly afraid of the ex-fireman at first. Eventually, Faber mentors Montag and gives him books and a two-way radio to contact him. Montag begins to resent his wife more and more, including her friends. They are oblivious to reality, and Montag debates with them about the politics of current society, and he reads to them poetry. The women are frightened and leave. Mildred calls the firemen and they come to burn Montag's house. The police are now after Montag and Faber. Faber gives Montag refuge and Montag goes to St. Louis to find Granger, a former book printer. Montag finds Granger and a group of former writers who are Faber's accomplices. All of the men use a portable television to watch the police. The police falsely murder a man and claim that it is Montag. Granger tells Montag of all of the memorized works that they wish to print and that someday they plan to foster a society where books can be printed freely. How is the censoring of the information reflective of the world at the time?
When the novel was first published, the United States was entrenched in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, a communist power that President Reagan would later call the evil empire. The censoring and editing of information was a common tactic for both powers, but was strongly associated with the Soviet Union, which many Americans viewed as oppressive. Censorship of media and the press was, and still is, considered an infringement on our rights as American citizens. By highlighting the censorship performed by the government in Fahrenheit 451, it is clear that the Cold War tensions of the 1950s had a visible effect on the novel.
How does the technology reflect technological advances and goals of the period when it was written?
Following the Second World War, new technology was becoming more widely available. One of the most influential pieces of the time, particularly during the 1950s, was the television. The television brought politics and the world directly into the average person's living room, and it revolutionized the way in which Americans consumed information and entertained themselves. In Fahrenheit 451, the idea of the television as a hallmark of society works to distort the new television trend, but represents goals for the technology of the future. The four-walled television that captures the full attention of Mildred can be seen as representing an exaggeration and even fear of the American obsession with televised media. It also represents goals for the future because the televisions of the 1950s were quite small and, compared to current technology, primitive. As a result, the technology of Fahrenheit 451, especially the TV, is reflective of society's opinions and goals at the time.
What do the books represent given the period in which it was written?
For centuries, books have been the key to obtaining new knowledge about the past and present. They have been loved, hated, exalted and feared. Books have been fiercely guarded, but also subject to the fires of fascism, as shown through Nazi book burnings only a decade prior to Fahrenheit 451's release. Books can be seen as a symbol of freedom and free will, while the burning of books is a sign of oppression. In the United States, book burning was not a common occurrence, but it was a very real threat during McCarthyism, or the Second Red Scare. Books represent freedom of thought and expression, and the burning of them in the novel demonstrates not only Bradbury's fears regarding the takeover of mass media, but highlights the government in the novel as being oppressive.